When a woman allows you to enter from the back, it's more than physical. It's emotional surrender, built on trust, presence, and safety. She disconnects from performance, embraces sensation, and communicates through silence. It's a sacred experience of vulnerability, mystery, and connection that leaves a lasting imprint far deeper than touch. When a woman allows you to enter from the back, it's never just about physicality. It's about something much deeper. It's a silent, powerful expression of trust. Not every woman feels safe enough to expose her most vulnerable side in such an intimate way. So when she does, it reveals how connected, emotionally safe, and relaxed she feels in your presence. You see, trust is not always built with words. It's built through consistent energy, presence, and emotional awareness. And when that trust is present, a woman can surrender in ways that are both physical and emotional. From a primal standpoint, this position mirrors an ancient expression of surrender, where the feminine allows herself to be fully taken, not in a forceful way, but in a way that says, "I trust you with my body, my space, and my vulnerability." This kind of trust doesn't show up in the first few moments of passion. It grows when a woman feels seen, respected, and emotionally held, even when no words are being spoken. It grows when she knows you're not just chasing a moment, but honoring the entire experience of intimacy with her. This position also takes away her visual control. She can't look into your eyes, read your face, or guide the interaction through expression. That kind of surrender only happens when she knows that you're not just physically present, but emotionally attuned. She needs to know you're paying attention to how she's breathing, how she's moving, how her body is responding. That awareness makes her feel cherished even when words are absent. And here's where it gets deeper. This kind of primal trust activates something in a woman's nervous system. When she feels emotionally and physically safe, her body can completely relax. And when a woman relaxes, she becomes more sensitive, more receptive, and more in tune with the sensations flowing through her body. It's no longer about mechanics. It's about melting. It's about fully embodying pleasure without fear, without pressure, and without the need to perform. That's why it feels so sweet. Because it's not just about what's happening physically, it's about the emotional environment you've created. She's not just giving you her body, she's giving you her openness. She's allowing you to experience her without walls. And that's something a woman doesn't give to just anyone. It's sacred, it's raw, and it's incredibly rare. The sweetness comes from feeling emotionally unclenched, from knowing she's not being judged, rushed, or treated like a means to an end. That feeling of being able to surrender, to simply feel instead of think, is one of the greatest gifts a woman can receive in intimacy. It's not about the position, it's about the energy. And when that energy is right, when the trust is real, the experience becomes something she won't forget. Not because of what you did, but because of how she felt in your presence. There's something deeply psychological that happens when a woman allows a shift in the usual dynamic of control during intimacy. Entering from the back naturally alters the flow of power. It places the man in a more dominant position, physically and energetically. But here's the truth that many miss. For a woman to truly enjoy this shift, she must choose to surrender, not be forced into it. That difference changes everything. Women are often expected to hold space for others, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. In everyday life, they're making decisions, managing stress, thinking ahead. So when she steps into a space where she's no longer expected to lead, where she can release control and simply feel, it becomes deeply liberating. That shift in power is not about dominance in a forceful sense. It's about her having the safety and trust to let go. She's handing over the reins, but only because she knows you'll hold them with care and presence. When you're behind her, you control the rhythm, the depth, the flow. But her response to that control is what truly creates the magic. She becomes more expressive, more instinctive, more raw in her reactions. And that's not just about physical pleasure. It's about emotional release. It allows her to move away from the pressure to perform and instead connect to the sensations and emotions running through her body. This dynamic also awakens something primal in both of you. The masculine energy of leading and the feminine energy of surrender aren't just sexual roles, they're energetic truths. When she feels like she can trust your lead, she sinks into her feminine in a way that feels both empowering and euphoric. It's not about being overpowered, it's about choosing to be led. That's a completely different form of power. Many women don't get to feel that level of freedom often. So when she allows you to take the lead from behind, she's not just giving you her body, she's inviting you to guide the entire experience. And that invitation comes with responsibility. It means being tuned in enough to recognize when to be gentle, when to be assertive, and when to just hold space for her to lose herself in the moment. Ironically, even though it appears the power shifts to the man, a woman who allows that shift is actually reclaiming her own power in a profound way. She's saying, I'm choosing this. I'm allowing myself to feel. I'm trusting you with my softness. That's a rare kind of vulnerability, and it's incredibly intimate. The sweetness she feels isn't just in the physical movement, it's in the safety of the power exchange, the balance of control and surrender, and the unspoken trust that allows her to let go and be fully present. ChatGPT said, when it comes to physical intimacy, sensation is everything. And one of the reasons women find it so sweet when you enter from the back is the sheer intensity of the physical stimulation it provides. It's not just about the novelty of the position. It's about how it activates certain parts of her body in ways that are harder to reach in more traditional angles. For many women, the heightened pleasure comes from a mix of deep penetration, pressure on sensitive nerve endings, and the way their bodies are naturally aligned to receive more sensation in that space. The anatomy of a woman's body is uniquely designed with pleasure points that, when accessed correctly, can send waves of sensation through her entire frame. The back entry position tends to create deeper angles of penetration, which stimulates areas like the anterior wall of the vagina and, in some cases, the cervix. When done with care and attention, this can be intensely pleasurable, not because it's rough or fast, but because it touches spaces that awaken her from the inside out. This angle also allows for more friction in areas where nerve endings are densely packed, creating a kind of fullness that many women describe as deeply satisfying. And when her body is fully relaxed and open to the experience, those sensations can become even more electrifying. The pressure, the stretch, the rhythm, they all combine to create a deeper connection between physicality and emotion. But it's not just the internal sensations. There's also external stimulation to consider. In this position, there's more opportunity for other kinds of touch, grabbing the hips, tracing the spine, whispering in her ear, holding her close. All of that sensory layering builds a more immersive experience. Women are naturally more responsive to multisensory input during intimacy. When you engage more than just the act itself, when your hands, breath, and voice are also involved, she feels it on every level. Add to that the way this position gives her freedom to move. She can arch, shift, or press back into you, adjusting her body in ways that align with what feels best for her. That kind of physical agency matters. It lets her participate fully in her pleasure without losing the experience of being led and held. Then there's the subtle psychological link between emotional openness and physical sensation. When a woman feels deeply connected to her partner, when she trusts the moment and feels safe in her body, her capacity for pleasure multiplies. Her body becomes more sensitive, her responses more intense. She lets go of her guard, and as her mind softens, her body receives more. That's why the sensations feel heightened. It's not just about the physical structure, but the emotional space she's in. When those two things align, it creates a kind of pleasure that stays with her long after the moment ends. Psychological surrender is one of the most underrated aspects of deep intimacy, and it's a major reason why women often find back entry so sweet and emotionally charged. For a woman to surrender psychologically during intimacy, her mind has to trust that it's safe to let go, not just of her body, but of her thoughts, her anxieties, her self-awareness. And in this particular position, something profound happens. She no longer feels the pressure to maintain eye contact, read facial expressions, or perform. Instead, she can disappear into the moment, guided by what she feels rather than what she thinks. When a woman enters a space of surrender, she moves from control to presence. In daily life, women often carry a heavy mental load, constantly planning, thinking, managing emotions, protecting themselves. So when she steps into a space where none of that is required, her body and mind start to release tension. That's when intimacy becomes more than physical. It becomes emotional therapy. Her surrender isn't weakness, it's her way of connecting more deeply with her feminine energy, which thrives in softness, safety, and sensuality. This position also demands a certain level of trust in the person leading the moment. She's not watching your face or guiding the interaction with her eyes. She's tuned in to how you're moving, how present you are, how much attention you're giving to her unspoken signals. That level of nonverbal communication is powerful. It creates a channel of energy that speaks louder than words. And when she feels that you're not just in the act, but in tune with her, she releases even more. She no longer needs to think. She gets to feel. In that psychological surrender, she becomes more sensitive to touch, more emotionally open, and more expressive. Not because she's putting on a show, but because she's free. Free from judgment, from pressure, from the internal dialogue that usually governs her experience. And it's in that freedom that she finds the sweetest pleasure, not just in the physical sensations, but in the relief of not having to be in control for once. What's most beautiful about this kind of surrender is that it's a gift. She's giving you access not just to her body, but to her subconscious trust. She's saying, without words, I feel safe enough with you to release. That kind of surrender doesn't come easily, and it doesn't happen with just anyone. It's reserved for moments where the emotional environment is strong enough to hold her. When you create that kind of space, where her body and mind can both relax, what she feels goes beyond pleasure. It touches her in ways she didn't even know she needed. The sweetness she experiences isn't just from the act, it's from being able to lay her armor down and simply exist in her most raw, receptive, and feminine state. There's a certain thrill that comes with the unknown, and for many women, that's exactly what makes entering from the back feel so irresistibly sweet. The mystery, the unpredictability, the sensory surprise. It's not just about a different position, it's about the way it changes the dynamics of perception, sensation, and anticipation. Without the usual face-to-face interaction, the mind becomes more tuned into the body. She can't rely on your facial expressions or direct eye contact to gauge what's next. She's not leading with logic, she's following feeling. And that shift creates a deeply immersive, almost hypnotic experience. Mystery awakens the senses in ways predictability never can. When she doesn't know exactly what you're going to do next, whether it's a sudden deepening of rhythm, a slow, teasing pause, or the unexpected caress of your hands across her back, it keeps her on edge in the best way. Her body becomes more responsive, more reactive, more alive. That sense of surprise ignites a powerful form of excitement that's both physical and psychological. It's not about fear, it's about suspense, and that suspense turns into pleasure when it's paired with trust. In this position, the body's awareness becomes heightened. She listens more closely to your breathing, feels every movement more deeply, and tunes into the subtle shifts in your energy. That kind of attentiveness brings her into the present moment, away from distractions and toward deeper embodiment. When a woman is fully in her body, the pleasure isn't just physical, it's emotional. She's not just receiving sensation. She's riding waves of feeling that catch her off guard in the most beautiful way. This mystery also strips away the performative layer that sometimes creeps into intimacy. She can't see your reactions, and you can't see hers in full either. That can feel freeing. Without the pressure to look or respond a certain way, she can lose herself in the experience. She can moan without thinking how she looks, move without self-consciousness, and allow the moment to unfold organically. That loss of visual feedback isn't a barrier, it's a gateway into raw, intuitive intimacy. Surprise in this context isn't chaos. It's carefully guided unpredictability. It's about being just spontaneous enough to keep her intrigued, just gentle enough to keep her feeling safe, and just intentional enough to let her know you're not rushing through a moment, but savoring it. That awareness makes her feel desired, not just touched, seen, not just taken, valued, not just used. So when she says it felt so sweet, what she often means is that it made her feel alive in ways that caught her off guard. It awakened something primal, something tender, and something she didn't see coming. The mystery didn't just heighten the pleasure, it deepened the connection, because when done with presence and care, the unknown becomes a playground for passion, and that's what makes it unforgettable. Emotional intimacy is the invisible thread that binds physical connection to deeper meaning, and it thrives on one essential foundation: trust. When a woman allows you to enter from the back, it's not simply a change in position, it's a mirror of the emotional space she feels safe enough to inhabit. It signals that she trusts you not just with her body, but with her vulnerability, her emotions, and the unspoken parts of herself that only surface when she feels fully secure. This trust doesn't happen overnight. It's cultivated through consistency, emotional safety, and the little moments where you prove you're not just present for pleasure, but present for her. When a woman senses that she's not being judged, that she doesn't have to perform or guard herself, she lets go in ways that are more profound than words can express. That kind of letting go creates emotional intimacy that lingers far beyond the bedroom. It's not just about what you do, it's about how you make her feel while doing it. In this specific form of intimacy, where her back is turned and her senses are heightened, emotional safety becomes everything. She can't read your facial expressions or your eyes, so she has to feel your energy, your rhythm, your attentiveness. If you're rushing, detached, or treating it like a routine act, she'll feel it, and instead of opening, she'll retreat inward. But if you're present, connected, and attuned to her responses, she'll soften. That softening isn't just physical, it's emotional. It says, I trust you enough to release. And with that release comes a deeper kind of closeness. Women don't just want pleasure, they want to feel chosen, seen, held. When she feels that in your touch, in your pace, in your respect for her body, her emotional walls start to come down. She stops bracing for judgment. She stops worrying about whether she's doing too much or not enough. She just is. And in that state of just being, emotional intimacy quietly grows. Physical intimacy without emotional depth can leave a woman feeling used, even if the act itself was consensual. But when emotional intimacy is present, even the most physically dominant acts feel wrapped in care, warmth, and connection. That's what turns a sexual moment into an emotionally fulfilling one. That's what leaves her smiling afterward, feeling lighter, feeling loved. Trust, when honored, becomes the gateway to a kind of closeness that words can't touch. And the more she trusts you, the more she lets you in, not just into her body, but into her emotional world. That's the real reward, because when a woman lets you see her in that space, when she lets her guard down and offers her vulnerability, she's not just giving you a moment. She's giving you access to her emotional core, and that is where true intimacy lives. There's a kind of communication that goes beyond words, something felt rather than said. In moments of deep intimacy, especially in positions where eye contact isn't present, unspoken communication becomes everything. When a woman allows you to enter from the back, She's relying less on verbal cues and more on the energetic dialogue between your bodies. It's not about what's being said, it's about what's being felt. And for many women, that's exactly what makes the experience so powerful, so sweet, and so unforgettable. In the absence of direct eye contact, she tunes into subtler things: the weight of your hands, the rhythm of your movements, the sound of your breath. These are all forms of language. When you're truly present with her, your body speaks a message of attentiveness, patience, and care. She doesn't need you to narrate every move or ask 1,000 questions. She needs to feel that you're listening to her body, to her sounds, to her stillness. That kind of listening speaks volumes. The beauty of unspoken communication is that it allows for a deeper, more intuitive connection. There's less pressure to perform or explain, and more room to simply experience. When you move with her, not just on her, when your rhythm matches hers without needing to be directed, she feels held without having to ask. That kind of synchronicity only happens when you're not in your head. It happens when you're fully in the moment with her. This is also where trust comes into play. When she doesn't have to verbalize every need or boundary because you've taken the time to learn her responses, her breath quickening, her hips shifting, the subtle arch of her back, it makes her feel deeply understood. She doesn't need to speak because your presence says, "I see you, I feel you, I've got you." That level of silent affirmation creates an emotional closeness that words can't replicate. Sometimes the most powerful expressions of desire, care, or respect aren't loud. They're found in the stillness, in the pauses, in the way you touch her without urgency. A gentle squeeze of the waist, a kiss between her shoulder blades, a whispered breath near her ear. These are quiet, yet they echo loudly in her emotional memory. They say everything without saying anything. Women often remember how you made them feel far more than what you said. And in this kind of physical interaction, where verbal dialogue is minimal, the emotional imprint left by your presence becomes the story she replays in her mind. That's why unspoken communication matters. Because it's not just physical cues, it's emotional safety written in silence. When she feels that, she opens up in ways she can't manufacture or fake. So much of intimacy is about energy. When your energy tells her she's cherished, safe, and free to express herself fully, she responds not with words, but with presence. And in that shared silence, something deeper than speech takes place: connection, understanding, and love, all without a single word. One of the most beautiful aspects of deep, emotionally attuned intimacy is that it allows a woman to disconnect from performance. In a world that constantly demands perfection, from how she looks to how she sounds, moves, and responds, intimacy becomes one of the few sacred spaces where she can let all of that go. And when she's in a position where she isn't expected to look into your eyes, respond to your expressions, or put on a show, she finally gets to feel instead of perform. When you enter from the back, the experience naturally shifts her awareness inward. She's no longer focused on how she looks in the moment, whether her face is expressive enough, or if her reactions are sexy enough. That position creates a physical and emotional space where she can close her eyes, focus on sensation, and melt into her own body. For many women, that's rare. They're so used to being seen, analyzed, or objectified that they struggle to simply be. But this moment offers her the relief of not being seen, at least not in the way the world constantly sees her. The ability to disconnect from performance means she doesn't have to manage the moment. She doesn't need to be the giver, the guide, the caretaker. Instead, she can just receive. And receiving is an art form that only happens when a woman feels emotionally safe, when she senses that you're not expecting her to entertain or validate you with reactions. She relaxes. And when she relaxes, her body becomes more open, more sensitive, more attuned to pleasure. This experience also strips away the idea that pleasure must be performative. She's not obligated to moan at the right time, arch her back a certain way, or say anything at all. There's freedom in that silence. There's truth in her unfiltered reactions. When she doesn't have to worry about how she's being perceived, her body leads the moment instead of her mind. And that shift creates a more honest, more fulfilling kind of pleasure, one rooted in authenticity, not expectation. Ironically, when a woman is free to stop performing, she becomes more expressive, not because she's trying to please, but because she's connected to what she's actually feeling. Her sounds become more genuine, her movements become instinctive, her energy becomes more alive. That's the kind of presence that can't be faked, and it only surfaces when she doesn't feel the need to impress. The ability to disconnect from performance is a gift you give her, not through words, but through presence. When you create a space where she doesn't feel like she has to be anything but herself, she comes alive in ways that surprise even her. That's when intimacy stops being a routine act and becomes something sacred, something real, something she'll remember, not because of what you did, but because of how free you allowed her to feel. When a woman says it feels sweet when you enter from the back, she's not simply talking about the physical act. She's referring to an experience layered with trust, surrender, and unspoken depth. It's about how safe she feels in your presence, how connected she is to her own body, and how completely she can let go without fear of judgment or pressure to perform. From the primal trust that grounds her, to the shifting power dynamics that allow her to surrender, every layer of the experience is wrapped in a quiet language of emotional security and deep responsiveness.